Boom, here we are. Back from a big week in Vegas. Dry, a little under the weather, scratchy throat, but excited to be here. And we didn't get to watch any of the keynotes, so we're going to get caught up here in the studio, watch Ross Ulbricht. Epic. I'm sure it's going to be epic. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Never done this before, so
Me
I'm
neither,
just gonna
man.
watch content and respond.
Well, I do it at home by myself in my head, so it's an honor to be here doing it with you.
Yeah,
And
likewise.
let's see what this guy's got to say. God, he's got to feel so good.
He's looking good. He looks like a lawyer or a politician.
Hey, gang. So I'm not in a prison cell anymore. Yep. I'm standing on this stage right here in front of you. On this exact day, May 29th, exactly 1 decade ago, I was standing in a courtroom in front of a judge. On that day, that judge gave me 2 life sentences plus 40 years without parole. I was just 31 years old. If she and all the others behind my prosecution had their way, I would have grown old and eventually died, still in prison. Instead, I'm here with you.
You know, this makes me think of the Mandela effect. I wonder if like 20 years from now, there's going to be some people that remember him dying in prison or being in prison. And then like, it's almost like we quantum leaped and skipped timelines, like the collective consciousness of all the freedom fighting individuals globally and the Bitcoiners and whatever, like pulled a new timeline out of the quantum field or something. I don't know.
That's a fucking original response right
A
there.
little out there.
Going
and esoteric.
Just a few months ago, I was trapped behind those prison walls and didn't know if I would ever get out. And now I'm free. I'm free, and it's because of you. You made this moment possible. Can you feel that? Let that sink in. You did this. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So I like that a lot, actually. Just him putting the emphasis on everyone else's contribution to getting him out, and just speaks to like, never doubt like a committed group, a small committed group of people and their ability to change the world, because indeed that's the only thing that ever has changed the world. And it's like when people come together, this is like the human superpower.
Yeah.
All the things that bring us together, you know, the language and the money and these things, they really just let us cohere into one group towards one common purpose.
Yes.
And when we organize ourselves in that way, we can move proverbial mountains. And you can free this fucking guy that was given 2 life sentences plus 40 years for creating a marketplace online.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of those like reminders of how powerful the market is, or how powerful people committed to a goal can be. You know, this is our superpower. And it's like, it's so great to see that.
Yeah, it's a testament to
see it working in real time. And then just because it's also part of the Bitcoin thing. It's like making Bitcoin succeed in that way is also that same process.
Yes.
So you're saying you did this, you know, you made me free.
Yeah.
It's also you that makes Bitcoin succeed.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that 100%.
And you're not alone. You are part of something much bigger. This is bigger than Bitcoin. This is bigger than crypto. Freeing me took many, many people. from all walks of life coming together and saying, this is not right. It took many people just like you saying, we care about freedom. And keeping somebody like Ross in a cage until he dies is a threat to freedom itself. It took President Trump recognizing that an injustice had been done and that so many of you demanded that I be freed. I am so thankful that we elected him and that he is who he is.
So if I were up there, I'd be shedding tears. I couldn't maintain composure if I were him.
He's a man who does what he says he'll do. He said he would free me, and he did. Period. He's a man of integrity. So a few years ago, when I was still in prison, trapped and desperate, I spoke to you at this conference through the prison phone. By show of hands, how many of you have heard the speech I gave at Bitcoin 2021?
Yeah.
Okay, probably about 20% of you. In that speech, I wanted you to understand what it means to lose your freedom. I wished I had known before I created Silk Road, before I risked my freedom. So those lessons that I had to learn the hard way, I wanted to give to you. I lost even more of my freedom because of that speech. The prison threw me in the hole over it for a while. And when they let me out, they put me under heavy surveillance for years, all the way up to the point that President Trump pardoned me. But you know what? I'm glad I did it. I am.
I'm going to think of that every single time I get anxiety or that feeling of fear around like anything I'm doing in my life. Like if this guy could sit there in a prison cell for as long as he did because he was doing what he thought was the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Commitment to the fucking cause no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connecting with you that day felt so good because it was like a small part of me had broken beyond the prison walls and escaped, if only for a little while. So today is the mirror image of that day. Today, I want you to understand what it means to win your freedom. Winning your freedom. Winning your freedom feels as amazing as losing it feels awful. And I want you to understand that. I want you to understand that because when it comes to freedom, we're not there yet. There is still more freedom to be won. Yeah. There's still more work to be done. And I'm talking about freedom beyond what anyone, anywhere, has ever had. It's going to be incredible. And it's going to be worth fighting for. I wish you could know what it felt like to take those first steps out of that prison and into freedom. I truly wish you could be overwhelmed by such a huge wave of freedom all at once. In that moment, feeling that, I knew all the years of effort, all the pain, all the struggle, it was worth it. And here's my point. Freedom is worth the struggle.
You know, I feel like when you get all of your assets sold and into Bitcoin and your Bitcoin into self-custody, it's like a micro taste of that freedom. I mean, I almost feel bad making the comparison, but at least that's what comes to mind.
No, that's a good one. Living in that state for a long time.
Yeah.
I always share with people like all the assets that I used to own, I was diversified, all the traditional stuff, like they were also owning me, you know, like you're pulled into the news cycle and this and that. There was a scatterbrainness and this bondage that came with it. But then when you're actually just loaded appropriately in Bitcoin and self-custody,
Yep.
there's this major liberation. Like for me, it was like the cognitive liberation is really what I experienced. Like I can now unplug from all this bullshit that I don't care about.
Yep.
And I'm just tracking it because I care about my portfolio value. I can just unplug from all of that.
Yeah.
And just like be in almost this meditative state to do whatever I want in the world.
Yep.
And that was liberating. Like a hyper micro dose of what he's describing.
Totally.
Now, if you can believe it, I actually got used to being in prison. After so many years, it just became normal. In order to keep my head and stay strong, I had to accept what had happened to me and where I was. Couldn't fight it every moment of every day. But there's a danger in that.
All right.
Like,
Do it.
no, because it's all just like speculation. But like, I'm just so skeptical of fiat politicians.
Yeah.
Like, there's part of me that thinks even the Trump assassination was probably engineered.
I agree with
really
that.
fucking create this wave behind this guy. And then I've also heard Saylor use, winning. He's always focusing on that word. And now he's focusing on that word. And they're sliding in crypto.
Yeah.
And now this seems like grooming him to like maybe be next politician or whatever. He's got this amazing story. I spent 10 years in prison. I'm like the Nelson Mandela of the US. And just like all these psyops just like run so deep. But again, I have nothing to base this on. It's just like my own little fucking
It's logic and reason.
I don't know if it's logic. It's like Hollywood movie scripting speculation.
Well, it feels like we're living in the Truman Show. There's, Anthony Weinerholm sending dick pics.
Yeah.
It's like there's too much stuff like that, man. There is. When Kamala ran, like you said, Biden like just disappeared into the bushes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself like, wow, some evil overlords are setting us up because there's no way she's going to win against Trump.
Yeah.
It's like if they had replaced her with like, I don't know, Gavin Newsom and his super nice hair, maybe he'd had a chance. But I'm like, we're getting led to the slaughter.
Right.
The left takes away one set of freedoms and then the right comes in and takes away the other set of freedoms that, the right would be adverse to.
Yes.
So,
it's just, that's right. That back and forth, and it's just pushing people back on the liberty scale over and over.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like all that's just, I don't know. That's why I feel like it's maybe not worth sharing because it's my own speculation and my own skepticism about fiat politicians broadly and the games that they play and the way the layers of the psychological manipulation. Like I'm just saying, like, well, how deep could it go? Like, what are they doing here?
Probably pretty deep, but that's don't trust, verify.
Yeah,
it's even myself. I find myself getting kind of excited about some of the things Trump is saying he's going to do, and in some ways it's like, this is almost too good to be true. RFK is talking about taking the fluoride out of the water.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, like this is exciting stuff, but what's the catch?
Yeah.
It seems like there's always a catch, with Bitcoin, there doesn't seem to be. So maybe there's not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. That is the underlying feeling is what is the catch?
Yeah. I'm with you in that one.
We can lose the desire for freedom. We can get used to our chains. We can forget that they're even there. David Bailey put it in perspective for me when we were talking about me coming to speak at this conference. He said, Ross, you took Bitcoin from 0 to 1. And while you were in prison, we, the community, all of you, we took it from 1 to 10. But we still need to go from 10 to 100. He's right. I mean, look at the last 14 years and what a wild ride it's been. When I launched Silk Road, Buying a whole Bitcoin would set you back less than $1. Pocket change. Can you imagine that? Now they're worth over $100,000 each. Back then, there was just one exchange you could buy them on, unless you wanted to scour message boards or go to local meetups. Now it seems like every app I download has a built-in wallet with one-click buying options. There are dozens of new cryptocurrencies and blockchains, each one fascinating in its own right, and thousands more I'll never have time to learn about.
He's halfway
There's
there.
the filter.
There's
the
DeFi
filter.
and Web3, and now there's AI to help me navigate it all. It's nuts. I effectively went into a time capsule in 2013, and now I'm coming out like Rip Van Winkle. I mean, just a few months ago, when I walked out of prison, I'd never seen a drone. I had never experienced AI. I still haven't. Sorry, VR. The headsets, yeah, haven't done that yet. I had never chatted with AI. It's all hitting me at once. The freedom, the new technology, the fact that I have a future again. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Just like, again, paying attention to the point where he says he's in the time capsule from 2013 to 25, and all of the things that he mentions that he missed, these are all like miracles of the marketplace, right? So he's basically been isolated from the social division of labor, the marketplace, all, obviously human interaction, all this as well, but these are the things that actually bear fruit. And he was basically thrown into the desert away from all this for so long. And so when he comes back, the first thing he notices, and the things that are very salient to him, are like, wow, look at all these new fruits that have grown since I've been gone.
As a result of the free market.
As a result of the free market.
Actually, as a result of a free market that's not a free market, that's being heavily stifled through central banking and the corruption of money.
Yeah, a free market with a big parasite on its neck.
Yes.
Basically, yeah.
A monumental ball and chain in the form of what, like a 2-ton money printer?
We don't know, right? We don't know how much we are impeding human innovation, human progress. Like, what else would we have invented had we not been running this free market on a fiat currency the past 10 years? Like, who knows?
That's a really interesting
You can't
point.
know, basically. But
Yeah.
But just that how he benchmarks his own experience of freedom is literally the fruits of the free market. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And imagine the next 12 years, because
Yeah.
the innovation is speeding up.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in prison, and now I get to live through this incredible time with all of you. What a blessing. What a miracle. What a gift. So, when it comes to new tech, I feel like I'm way behind the curve. But I'm starting to suspect that maybe we're all feeling that way, at least a little bit. I mean, everything's moving so fast right now. And it's kind of thrilling to imagine where it's all going. But that question remains. How do we take the next leap? How do we go from 10 to 100? Because of the speed, because of the chaos, it's more important than ever to stay true to our principles. It's easy to lose sight of principle when everything's happening all at once and there's 1,000 things pulling your attention in every direction. Principles should be simple and few. And today I would like to mention 3. Freedom, decentralization, unity. Remember, yeah, you got it. So remember those 3. Freedom, decentralization.
You think he's aware that Bitcoin is the only decentralized protocol we have?
I guess we're about to find out, but if he's using the word crypto, probably not. Or again, like, this is my little micro litmus test. It's like, if you're using that word, is it being instrumentalized to some purpose? Like, why would you throw that in the mix? Even when Saylor's tweeting, it's like you're starting to play. It's almost like you're signaling that you're playing the political game once you start using that word.
Yeah.
Versus playing the freedom game, which is Bitcoin, not shitcoin.
Yeah. I've thought about that a bit with Saylor specifically. And part of my initial thought process, assuming he's benevolent, is that he's just expanding the audience of people that he's talking to.
True.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
It's a weird, I mean, this is the deepest philosophical line. Like you always come back to, it's like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
And I think most Bitcoiners draw the line right there. It's like, don't fucking say crypto, don't hold crypto. Don't talk.
Like, I hear
and it
and
is
I
a
feel
bit,
like
it sounds crazy. Like having been on the other side of this too. It's like when I ask questions about stuff and people attack me, I'm like, what? That's a fucking question. Like, go fuck yourself. But there is now this filter that's taking place where people, I don't know, it gives me the suspicions basically.
Yeah.
When I hear people using that word intently next to Bitcoin as if they're trying to orange wash that term to orange wash all the projects that are under that term.
Yes.
And so that gives me concerns.
You know, and being a free market maximalist as you are, I think that you should be allowed to create whatever protocol you want.
Of course.
But the purist in me and the Bitcoin maxi in me struggles with that because I think that we have major problems. And look, I went to go to the store to pick up the cameras, and the way back, there's a guy standing in the middle of a rainstorm selling oranges. Like it almost made me cry, like just thinking about all the people that are suffering in the world. And it's just like we have all this innovation theater and all this chaos in the greater crypto market, and it's like we have the potential to change the direction of civilization. Bitcoin's the biggest deal in human history as far as I'm concerned. And like getting out ahead of what's so important seems a little folly to me.
Yeah.
And I struggle with it.
I agree with it. But, this is why it's a dynamic line of tension, I suppose, because in one hand, if it's not violating life, liberty, nor property, then do whatever you want, right? You do you, as they say. But then there is this one thing that doesn't violate life, liberty, nor property, yet is still wrong, is lying. Right? And this is where it's a weird line, because there has to be innovation theater. It doesn't have to be, but there is innovation theater. Anytime someone's building a new product, specifically software, they go and pitch this vision, right? It can be any business, but it's very popular in the software space where people literally create unicorn companies, right? They're worth zero, and then 18 months later, they're worth $1 billion, right? So there's a lot of upside. That process of going from zero to $1 billion valuation involves selling a vision, right? You need to go and sell it before you build it.
Right, it's a form of LARPing, right?
Yeah, well, in a way, I mean, LARPing, that's a whole other term, but it's like you have to take. It's like, okay, so the guys that build Instagram, for instance, when they had this vision, they had this idea, hey, let's go build this thing, but they need to raise money for it. I just picked one out of the blue. I don't even know their funding story, actually. At some point, they have to go to some people with money and say, hey, here's the thing we're going to build. Here's what it's going to do. It's going to change the world, blah, 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 right? They're selling a vision that doesn't exist, right? Are they lying? It's like, well, not lying. Like, they intend to build it. And in fact, in Instagram's case, they did build it. But in 99 other cases, they did not, right? Instagram's the 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 1,000 that hits like that.
Yeah.
And so there's this natural game of innovation theater built into business building. It's acute in technology, let's say.
Yep.
And so crypto, it's like, is it innovation theater? Like, are they actually going to build the decentralized world computer, or are they actually going to build the whatever smart contract platform? And the answer to most of those questions appears to the Bitcoin maximalist as no, right? I guess the operative word is decentralization always. Like, no, these things aren't actually decentralized.
No, it's decentralized in name only.
Decentralized in name only, because it's always ultimately under the control of an individual company or someone else. They are companies, basically, whereas Bitcoin is much more like an internet protocol.
Yep.
And that is the key. That's where the line gets drawn, and that is the key difference. Now, the unanswered question, I mean, for me, the answered question is Bitcoin is one as digital gold, right? It would take some pretty significant changes in the market landscape for me to change that conclusion. I don't know. It would have to be it'd be market cap driven. something would have to supplant Bitcoin in terms of market cap by like 10x and stay there for like 10 years.
But it's like that you can't discover scarcity twice. Like we discovered scarcity already, right? Like how are you going to how's that going to be replaced? The probability of that is so low.
It's
I
like
consider it to be zero.
the number 0 being disrupted. Like how would the number 0 be disrupted? Like it's a number, it's a thing, it's like an idea. It's kind of like the centerpiece to a symbolic system. But so I can't imagine how Bitcoin would be disrupted, but I guess the open question is, can any of these other crypto projects actually achieve decentralization? And it's not black or white, right? It's not centralized or decentralized. Balaji wrote on this back in 2017 or 2018, like quantifying and qualifying decentralization. There is a spectrum. Even Bitcoin started out as a centralized project in one guy's mind, released to a group, and it had to go through this organic, idiosyncratic process of unfolding into the world to become decentralized. It had to survive the block size wars of 2017, get all these other scars on its battle belt or whatever metaphor you want to use to become decentralized. The decentralization was not concocted in the lab, right? Now, Satoshi did contemplate the game theory involved and the way to release it and the timing to release it and all these things to like give it the best, to plant the seed in the best soil so that it could become what it is becoming or has become, is becoming. But you can't just recreate that in a lab, right? There's all these other social layer considerations.
Yeah.
And so the open question for me is like, can any of these other projects do that? I don't think they can do it as money because I think Bitcoin's already claimed that space. Do they solve any other of these actual market use cases in a decentralized way? I would say if so, they'll probably be built on top of Bitcoin.
That's one of my issues with altcoins is like you can build all these protocols on multiple layers on top of Bitcoin and you can settle to the hardest substance in the known universe.
So
the
Bitcoin
incentive for these people, the issue too is Instagram, they had proper disclosures when they were bringing on investors and they're selling equity.
Yeah, that's right.
So you don't have proper disclosures with all of these altcoins, and Bitcoin's 60K. You missed out on Bitcoin. You should buy my yo-yo coin.
Yeah.
And then there's a 40 or 70% pre-mine, and your average retail investor has no clue.
That's right.
And so that's where I have a problem. And then it also is like, look, the world is so fucked. Can we just focus on fixing the world? Yeah. And the beauty of Bitcoin is you can both serve your self-interest while helping the collective.
Yeah.
And then also like I'm a low risk. I'm very risk adverse, which is kind of ironic for having all my money in Bitcoin and having, 17 years as a career cannabis farmer. But I don't have time to analyze that risk. It's also like changing lanes. It's like energy exertion. Like what kind of wear and tear are you putting on your life because you're trying to catch 1,000x?
Yeah.
At some point you're gonna have to sell that.
Yeah.
It's like in Samson Mao, one of his quotes that I love so much is Bitcoin has natural buyers and altcoins have natural sellers.
Yeah.
So as the price is ripping on all these alts, you're pushing into people dumping their bags on you.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Realization, unity. Let me take you back to before I created Silk Road, back in 2010. I wanted to have some magic mushrooms on hand to sell through the site, so it wouldn't be totally empty when I launched it. But I didn't want to get them from a friend of a friend or whatever because I didn't want to get caught. Look how well that turned out.
Gosh.
So instead, I rented a cabin outside of town where I could grow my own. But when I showed up at the cabin, I found that there were 7 wasp nests tucked in all the corners of the front porch, with one big one hanging right over the front door. There were wasps everywhere. They were swarming in the air and crawling all over the nests. The cabin was totally uninhabitable, and the wasp infestation needed to be taken care of. But I didn't want to call an exterminator or involve my landlord for obvious reasons. So I was on my own. But I remembered a trick that my father had shown me when I was a kid for removing wasps. What he did was he got a towel and spread it out in his hands, and he got as close as he could to the wasp nest. And then at the last moment, he darted out, wrapped it up, and cinched the towel closed. The wasps couldn't sting them through the towel, and they couldn't get out. So incredibly, it worked. So there I was, on the wasp-infested porch. My heart was pounding as I prepared to do what I'd seen my dad do. Like many things I've done in my life, I wouldn't try this one at home. So I selected the nest that was furthest from the others because I didn't know if the other nests would come to their aid and sting me. I spread out the towel, got as close as I could, ready to flee if I had to. But when I wrapped up the nest, nothing happened. It was as if the other wasps didn't even notice. So I was able to go around the porch and carefully remove each wasp nest one by one until there were no more wasps, not even the big nest over the front door. So, why did I tell you this story? Let's look at what made the wasps strong and what made them weak. And remember, freedom, decentralization, unity. The wasps were strong because they were free. Each wasp could act independently, and it was impossible to keep track of so many individual wasps. A sting could come from any direction. Freedom is our strength as well. In prison, my every move was monitored and controlled. I was constantly dominated by the system I was trapped in. I had no freedom, and that made me weak. But with freedom, we have choices. And with choices, we become unpredictable, just like the wasps. Choice is the essence of freedom. Any one of us could create the next piece of liberating technology that empowers the people of the world. And compared to the constraints I lived under in prison, there's very little standing in our way.
I wish they'd use the word consent rather than choice.
Interesting.
Choice is, agreed to some extent, but it's like there's one level deeper than that. Mm-hmm. And it's, if we're going to get into like the philosophy of freedom based on the minds and the hearts that built this country, right? It's like life, liberty, property, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And the essence of those things always comes down to consent. Consent is the line, basically. And so choice is good, but it's slightly too broad because you can still choose to coerce someone, right? Mm-hmm. Without defending yourself, let's say, in an uninitiated way, you could just choose to coerce someone. So choice is not quite the essence of freedom. Consent is the essence of freedom.
Yeah, I like that. And, maybe I'm just suffering from my orange colored glasses, but it seems that the technology to truly free us is here. Mm-hmm. He's at the Bitcoin conference. Mm-hmm. And so it's, I'm like, is that something we should be focusing more on in this speech? He's giving a great speech, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
maybe he'll get to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bitcoin doesn't work without freedom. Bitcoin's power comes from the fact that any one of us can mine if we choose to. Any one of us can generate addresses if we choose to. Any one of us can send Bitcoins to anyone else. We are all on equal footing with Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, we are all free. Losing so much of my freedom really helped me understand what it is and why it's so important. There were times when I had lost so much freedom, I couldn't even choose what position to hold my body in because I was cuffed and shackled so tightly. In those moments, I understood that freedom is not a binary switch that is either off or on. Being outside a prison's walls does not automatically mean you are free. And being within them doesn't mean you're not. Because even in those moments, I had choices. I could choose to resist, or I could choose to accept. I could have a peaceful attitude or a belligerent attitude. I could let the people taking my freedom get to me. Or I could find joy deep down inside where they couldn't touch it. In those moments, finding joy in just being alive, that was my victory. That was how I kept the torch of freedom burning. Next, the wasps were strong because they were decentralized. 7 nests were harder to handle than just one. Had they all been in one big nest, I would have simply removed that nest without worrying about the other wasps coming to sting me. Decentralization is our strength as well. We can argue all day about how things can be more decentralized, and those are good arguments to have. But as a principle, decentralization is the goal that we strive for. Bitcoin's strength is in decentralization. Bitcoin lives on the internet, which is itself decentralized. Anyone can run the Bitcoin protocol and connect online. There are people from every corner of the globe, people we will never meet, validating and mining the blocks that make up the blockchain. There are scores of wallets and exchanges spread out all over the world. And because Bitcoin is decentralized this way, nothing can stop it. Nothing. It's true.
He just needs to say that's the difference between Bitcoin and
And if
crypto.
that wasn't enough, there are countless forks and blockchains, all riffing off of Satoshi's original design. And this too is a form of decentralization.
Is it though?
So long as we are free to choose, we want as many of these experiments going on as possible. The strong will survive, and the system as the whole will become more robust and able to adapt. With decentralization, there is no single point of failure.
What do you think about that? You know, because I think from time to time, you know, what's taking place is like a form of economic Darwinism. And I guess I struggle with the whole altcoin space, you know, kind of from that purist maximalist perspective of like a lot of the people who are getting wrecked, the exit liquidity, your average individual who's like, hey, yeah, you know, so-and-so told me about some Bitcoin. They get on a Coinbase and they see all this garbage and they're buying that stuff. I think that they should be allowed to do so. So in that sense, like, I believe in the free market, but I'm also very conflicted because I feel like we have a real problem. We have a real opportunity to like usher in this like fair, consensual, free, abundant, you know, world for all. And so like, I get really conflicted about that. You can't, do you stop it? I mean, you know, I don't know if that's better. How do you, you know, it's like,
well, you don't want to use coercion to stop it. Surely. I think basically what is happening is the cultural response that is necessary to keep it in check. So the analogy I've used in the past is toxic Bitcoin maximalism is the immune system, right? So these projects that are crossing that line, right? You know, they're beyond innovation theater and they're just outright frauds or scams, rug pulls, you know, all the different terms that we use for these things. You can't really, it's hard to criminalize that, because again, you're stuck in this kind of gray area. I was like, well, is it a real project? Is it actually decentralized? You can't actually measure decentralization. Like there's different proxies and all these ways to go about it, but it's not like a hard and fast fact, basically. So to bring legal coercion against those projects seems a little bit outside the lines.
Well, in some sense,
unless they have already stolen property, right? They've already rug pulled someone, like then it's okay. You told this lie to extract this property, but just these projects that are, raising money and doing things, I think that basically they're under the radar of criminal jurisdiction, but they do need to be dealt with in the social intellectual domain, and that is effectively what toxic Bitcoin maximalism is doing. Is they're calling out the bullshit. And zooming out a little bit, this whole thing could be looked at kind of like a mirror of what the human can be, right? It's like you can shoot. We often joke that Bitcoin's an IQ test or it's an ethics test. It's like we can lean into this one project that's already succeeding, that holds so much potential to really elevate civilization to the next level. Or that's like playing the long game, basically. Or we can go play these stupid short games and try to rug pull one another over and over again and play these zero-sum games of like, oh, look at my shiny object, buy my shiny coin, oh, ha, ha, rug pulled you here, rug pulled you there. It's like, that's the mirror we're looking at to see ourselves. It's like, do we want to play zero-sum games? Or do we want to play long-term positive-sum games?
Short-sightedness. I like to think and I say this from time to time, I'm the ultimate selfish person, and I make sure that the world around me is really good and doing well, and I'm far-sighted in that sense, and I'm ethical, because then ultimately the world is a better place and I get a better experience out of it.
It's the virtue of selfishness, Ayn Rand would call it.
The Silk Road. But despite their strengths, despite being free and decentralized, the wasps were weak because they lacked unity. Any one of those wasps was free to come sting me, but none of them did. They were decentralized, so they had the opportunity, but none of them took it. Had a single wasp dared to come sting me when I reached for that first nest, I would have fled. Those things really hurt. But they didn't. Thank God you are not wasps.
Cyber hornets. Cyber hornets.
Interesting.
When I was put in prison for life, I was isolated and weak. I was stripped of everything, had nothing to give anyone. But you didn't abandon me. You didn't forget me. You wrote me letters. You raised money for my defense. When I was silenced, you spoke up against the slander and the smears. And in the end, when I didn't know if I would ever get out from behind those thick iron bars, you even got President Trump to see that Bitcoin is the future. Yeah, you did that. You got him to see that decentralization and freedom are our future. You said, Ross is one of us. You stayed united. You said, we want Ross out here with us. You said, free Ross. You did this. There were days when I thought I would die in that awful cage. But somehow, that spark of an idea that was Bitcoin back in the early days, that idea I risked and lost my freedom for, it grew into a movement so powerful that more than a decade later, it came back around and freed me.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. Now, in prison, sadly, the prisoners tend to divide themselves into factions. Resources are scarce, and isolated individuals can be preyed upon, so groups tend to dominate, and there are conflicts between the groups. Unity among the prisoners is lost. It's a very difficult environment to navigate, and
Just real quick, the way he just described the way prisons assemble themselves into groups and then fight over scarce resources sounds identical to nation states to me.
Totally. As above, so below.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it at first, but the guards, the wardens, the prison administration, they actually like it that way. They like and encourage the division. Now, why would that be?
Divide and conquer.
You've heard the saying, divide and conquer, right? Well, there's a corollary to it which says divide and rule. Prisoners have already been conquered, so it's the job of the prison to rule them. And it's easier to rule when your subjects are fighting each other than when they're fighting you. The only times I saw the wardens show respect to the prisoners was when we were united. When we all wrote letters with a unified message, they showed up and listened. When we all went on hunger strike together, they showed up and listened. Unified, we stopped being treated like objects and started being treated like men, like equals. Unified, we were able to stand together and demand the respect that we deserve. So, how does this apply to us?
That is actually, I mean, it's a great point, right? And these two things are they're opposites in a way, decentralization and unity. Obviously, you're decentering, right? You're distributing power to the edges, to the periphery, yet somehow you need to also keep people unified into one cohesive network. Our solution to that historically has been the monopoly on violence, right? Put all the power in the hands of one group, and then, you know, in its best iteration, we have a constitutional republic, and we say, hey, here's a list of the things the government will never do, i.e. the Bill of Rights in the United States, you know, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, et cetera. And then you leave the government to, these are the things government can never do, now they can do other things over here, right? So this has been kind of like the aim of human civilization. Is like, how do we achieve decentralization with unity? Right, or the middle point between them, something like that. And I think it's just another area where Bitcoin shines.
Yeah.
You know, like it is maximally empowering to the individual. It is highly decentralized. That's like its defining characteristic. But in doing so, it becomes this singular shelling point for money. That like it is the optimal strategy for each individual. Therefore, it becomes one cohesive network. It's kind of like, again, the rule of law historically, or the Magna Carta or the Constitution, one of these documents that says, here's what you are given from God and what government can never do. That's intended to be basically what Bitcoin is in a way. So I think that's just something that's interesting to me.
It's so mind blowing. It just thinking about it, you almost have to like wire new neural pathways because it's like paradoxical in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, I'll leave it at that. Actually, I could say more.
We can argue all day, but please never see each other as enemies. Those that oppose decentralization and freedom love it when we're divided. I promise you. So stay united. So long as we can agree.
You know, you did a podcast at Sailor's House. It was you, Kaysen, American Hold'em, and John Vallis. And one of the things Saylor said that really hit me hard is, powerful people, they have contempt for you if you're weak, but they respect you if you're powerful. And it's kind of maddening, the red versus blue and just all the division we have in our world. Like, we have so much power. If we could just unify, it would be over tomorrow.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it slipped my mind in the last one. But that, where he described, the prison guards love the disunity inside of because it's divide and rule, as he said, right? They've already been conquered. Now they need to be ruled. Well, it's much easier to rule if people are disunified and channeling their antagonism at one another rather than unifying and channeling it at you.
Yes.
That is perfect description of fiat politics for me. Like, the reason we're giving this pseudo option of like red party, blue party, and then you get everyone in the country deeply identifying with their political beliefs, and they can just argue on the internet forever with the other guy. And like, if I can just type the perfect message and tell this guy how stupid he is, that'll save the country. It's like, you've all been duped. You've all been duped. You're all victims of this divide and rule strategy.
Yeah.
Like, if you think your politics make that much of a difference, then you don't understand how the financial system works. And it doesn't matter if you vote red or you vote blue, they all are subservient to the central bank shareholders.
It's just the right hand or the left hand stealing from you.
It's a puppet show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's like this parasitic entity is stealing from us and causing an autoimmune disease where we're battling with each other, and we're making ourselves weak and sick.
Yeah.
It's just it makes me think of an autoimmune issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Agree that we deserve freedom and that decentralization is how we secure it. Then we can be united. We can have each other's backs, just like you had mine. Freedom, decentralization, unity. Stay true to these principles, and the future is ours. Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm glad he's out.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see if he does go down the political career path now, because he certainly seemed well groomed.
Yeah, I mean, he nailed that keynote.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is like, he created a website, and I don't think that you should get in trouble for doing that. But like, while he was doing that, and once again, like, I'm a 17-year career cannabis farmer, and like, even though I was lawful within my state and my jurisdiction, people who got in trouble were treated with this like, you're guilty till proven innocent kind of, dynamic would play out with everybody who got in trouble. So as he's operating the website, like, he had to have known that he was taking enormous risk. Like, and was it, he's such a libertarian, he wanted the freedom, or was it the monetary gain, or was it both? I mean, it's one of the things he
was in his 20s, right? And he was making an astronomical amount of money. I can see where someone would just chase that, right? He's caught a wave of a kind, and he's probably not contemplating the long-term risk quite so much when he's in the mix of just making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
Would be my guess. I don't really know, but
yeah. And the prosecutors just hammered the shit out of him. Yeah. I was shocked when Trump said that he was going to free Ross on day one. And then I was shocked when he did it. That's...
Yeah. Wasn't on day one, but...
No, I think it was day 3, or I could be wrong about that. Impressive. I'm glad he's free. And that's a serious message for sure. I think that, and like, I have so much respect for the Bitcoin community at large. Everybody within Bitcoin, anybody who owns any Bitcoin, anybody's talked about it, any of the anons that are posting stuff, but I feel like I want to be careful as I say this, but I feel like there's a lot of people that are sitting back quietly, that if we just all stood up and started speaking out more, that would have a tremendous effect. And listening to him and his experience, like, he feels like he's pointing at the audience being like, it's you. All of you guys are the reason that I'm free.
Yeah.
And it just makes me think like, gosh, we could just really just get over the division and we could focus on what's important and we could push this thing forward.
Yeah.
And I go back and forth sometimes. Like I think it's inevitable and I trust the process, but then there's times I get a little bit concerned and I'm like, oh gosh, I really want this to work out. Like how could I do my part? How could I incentivize others or encourage others to do their part?
Yeah.
And I guess in some ways we all are. And it's that like oscillating back between like having trust and faith and then being scared. And it's like this back and forth thing. And I don't know, but that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been, for me, like, the experience has been very revealing of human nature. Just in seeing how people act online versus act in person. Like, Jameson Lopp tweeted the other day that, I was at the Bitcoin conference, had thousands of people come up to me, they want to take a photo, they've got nice things to say, blah, blah, blah. Whereas online, he's getting lambasted for whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. They support Ethereum and their product or whatever it is. And so, like, that massive different, because I've had the same experience, right? I've had not horrible. If you saw things online, you would think like people actually were wanting to kill me based on what they type.
Right.
But then you see them in person and everyone's just all smiles and hugs and take photos.
Yeah.
So it's like the cowardice of the keyboard warrior. Like you might think you're doing a service to humanity, but you're just hiding behind a keyboard and talking shit, bro. Like you're not doing anything. You want to do something?
Popping pimples in your parents' basement.
Popping pimples in your parents' basement.
Tweeting,
you want to do something, like you want to be a participant in history, then stand up, to your point. Go do something. Like this. And I don't want, like, there's a line here too. It's like, okay, of course, Satoshi wasn't anon. He did things behind a keyboard. It's like, well, okay, he fucking built Bitcoin. What did you do? Like, did you create a meme and make fun of someone, or did you build Bitcoin? Like, so these are things that I think about. Like, you're learning about how humans actually operate, and there's just some people that want to actually, that are action oriented, and some people that are talk oriented.
Yeah.
And and you see true colors come out, I guess, through time.
What is that? Is that fear? Like we all want to have purpose in this world. We want to do things that make us feel good. But I find personally a lot of those things that I want to do to like help create the world that I want to live in. When I think about taking action on those things, then it's followed by a feeling of like fear. I remember when I first started making, posting and making videos talking about Bitcoin, like I spent like weeks thinking about like, what risk am I taking? Does anybody give a fuck? Like, I'm really like an introverted person. I'm the last guy who's gonna be like, hey, this is what I have to think or whatever. But I had this intuitive feeling that I should speak out. Yeah. Because I want to make sure I'm an active participant in the things that I like, want to see happen in the world. Yeah. And as a result of doing that, like I can say in some ways it's like riding this wave of something so special with Bitcoin. Like I feel like my life has become like magical in some ways. Like the people I've met going to these conferences, it's like, it's a special thing.
So meaning in life went up for you when you faced your fears.
That's true.
Right? And in mythology, they say the treasure you most seek is in the cave you least want to enter. Right, like it's always behind that door that you don't want to open. The thing you don't want to do, the thing that deep down in your heart, whatever story you've told yourself, know you actually have fear about. Somehow the treasure, the meaning, the whatever, the fulfillment is on the other side of that. And that always seems to be true. I heard there's two acronyms I've seen given for fear that I like. One is forget everything and run, fear. Or you can choose to face everything and rise. And like you get to decide. And and the other saying I like about fear is like when you do what you fear, fear disappears. So it's like you just fucking my whole life I've been running at the shit that I'm scared of. Right? Like I've shared so many times on this podcast, I'm introverted. People used to tell me to do videos, like past girlfriends and stuff. I'm like, I'm not doing fucking videos. I'm an accountant, like self-limiting belief. But somehow for me, it was like crisis. I was like, oh, well, let me go and like lean into this thing. Let me really lean into what ultimately was Bitcoin, basically Bitcoin feedback from the Bitcoin world. I'm writing, I'm tweeting, which is not me on camera. And then eventually there's demand for more and more of that. So I lean into that. And, just like you, my life has become much more meaningful when I've gone toward that thing that I fear. Another one I heard, I think it's false interpretation appearing real. And
And that's like, I think a lot of times,
Or false expectations.
false expectations appearing real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea of the way things could go down is so stifling. And most of the time, it doesn't even happen that way.
Yeah, if it's going to go down, it's probably not going to go down the way you expect it.
Yeah.
I mean, but we are like, it also has, like, you have this kingdom within you, basically, right? And fear, you know, there's courage, there's all these different aspects of yourself. Fear has a purpose, right? It's saying, hey, what if this happens? Like, this could be bad, this could be bad.
Yeah.
But that's okay, right? If it's put in its proper place and given its proper apportionment, and the proper response to that would be preparation.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, well, if this goes bad, let me have a plan A, B, C, D. If this goes bad, let me have another contingency plan, et cetera.
Totally.
But if you let, you know, so it's an excellent servant, terrible master. You let fear be the master, your life's fucked, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be a fucking loser. Sorry, but that's
Yeah.
basically what's going to happen. If you can flip that and like give voice to your fear and be honest about your fear too,
Yep.
which is, it works in every domain, by the way. Like in Radical Truth with my wife, like we talk about our fears. It's like, hey, instead of getting after your wife, be like, hey, you did this, like really try to sit with it and be like, what did I feel in that moment? And then find a sacred space to sit with your wife. Like, hey, I want to like say something right now.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be in judgment. I don't want you to be reactionary. Like, can do whatever ritual you need to get into that sacred, safe space, and then actually confess to one another your deepest fears. It's very useful.
Yes.
Right? Especially as a man, like once you set that tone and then she'll reciprocate,
Yeah.
and you will become more deeply integrated as a couple. And so this, I think it applies in every domain.
Yeah, that brings to mind a speech Jim Carrey did, Harvard graduation speech. And he's talking about making decisions in life based upon either fear or love. And we often choose fear disguised as practicality. And, you know, that really hit me hard. I've listened to that speech so many times, you know, because I've had to confront my fears, self-limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And as, you know, as I lean into them, and it's not easy, my life just gets better and better and better and better. And Bitcoin is such a catalyst, such a it's wind in the sails. It's so empowering. And I think it's, you know, logical in a lot of ways to be scared of social ostracization.
Of course.
You know, our ancestors who weren't socially accepted died alone in the woods.
Yes.
We're the descendants of people who were socially accepted and cared about being socially accepted.
Yeah, which is exactly what Ross just went through. Right?
Yeah.
It was that exile that he was in. And again, you're separated from human contact. You're separated from all freedom itself, right? The actual freedom, physical freedom to go about in the world. And then all the miracles of the market, as we talked about earlier. Like, yeah, it is to be exiled. It is to die a certain type of death. But like, again, making that conscious and knowing that's part of who you are and what you are evolutionarily programmed to be, you can now give proper voice to that fear, and, you know, hopefully put some adequate preparation to meet that voice, and then don't be led by it. Go and lead your life from your heart, from your mind, from your gut, you know, or the triangulation between the three, but don't let fear run your life. Because I really think fear, like if you get way down to it, I think it is the essence of fiat, right? That people are complying with fiat out of fear. Oh, fuck, I better pay my taxes. I better do, like, or the state's going to get me, you know, or what, like all that fear that goes with interaction with the state. And then on the other side of it, the state is also doing this out of fear. They want to command and control and centrally plan everything so there's no uncertainty, so there's nothing to be scared of, right? It's like the classic Marxist utopia, right? We figured it out, like we're going to build it all. By the end of the Soviet Union, it was like illegal to be sad, you know, like they couldn't be sad because that was, if you were sad, well, that was proof that the utopian plan wasn't working and you weren't happy. So if you were sad, your ass was going to go to fucking jail.
God, so
right? Like
wild.
that's how out of touch with reality it can get at the extremes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It comes all back to being in touch with reality.
Well, it seems that Bitcoin is bringing us back to reality in a way maybe we've never had before.
Yeah, it's just a language that speaks the truth. And so as core components of its network, we have to get more in touch with truth as well to get in touch with Bitcoin.
Yep. I love that. Confront your fear. Stand up and do the right thing. If you're concerned about speaking up about how important Bitcoin is, but you're scared that you're going to get hammered, you know, socially, legally, whatever. Think of this fucking guy.
Yeah.
He sat in a jail cell for 13 years because he did what he believed to be the right thing, and he kept hope and faith and whatever. And for some reason, here he is giving us a keynote speech.
It's a great point.
In Vegas.
And then as a plug, yeah, we do go into this at our retreats in Mexico, right? We get a bunch of men together that are talking about real shit, guys that are doing big things in life, but are also struggling. And then we come together, we have a meeting of the minds, and that mixing of perspectives always seems to be very valuable. And then we go into different techniques and rituals like the breath work and the Temazcal. And, you know, I am addicted now to seeing personal transformation in the lives of others. We're like, I won't name the name of the guy at the last one after the breath work had a transformation. We saw him again in Las Vegas. It's like keeping up with him and seeing how that's going. That's of deep interest to me, because I think that Bitcoin is this thing that's unlocking our liberty financially and cognitively. And then the question is, what do we do with it? And so, you know, we're bringing a group of guys together to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah. If this is a time of hope, or a time of growth for those that know, and a time of hope for those that don't.
Beautiful. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.